Hello, welcome to the new podcast on our Kombat channel. I am Inferni, and I'm here with Peach.
Hey guys.
This is going to be our little podcast that we just decided to start up, where we just talk about real life issues and stuff that we think is important that needs to be talked about and that we just like discussing. So yeah, I think we should start off with a topic that we were kind of discussing a little bit earlier, but so there is a Facebook group called like unvaccinated moms. First off, what are your ideas? What are your thoughts about it?
Well, it's like it's almost like religion, right? It's kind of how you shouldn't necessarily raise a kid biased towards anything because they are not old enough yet to make a legitimate decision. And especially when it comes to something as stupid like getting a goddamn vaccine. It's like it takes all of 2 seconds and it saves your kid's life. But no, no, why get it? That's how people die, and that's how like it wipes a whole nation full.
Yeah, like I just think it's really stupid that not only are you putting other people in danger, you're putting your own child's life in danger.
Well, and I'm not sure, but in most places, I'd presume like vaccines are free.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, I know. I'm pretty sure like you can go to like local drugstores and probably get them. Like,
hell,
like
you
not like if not for free, then like really cheap.
exactly, and it saves your life pretty much. Well, it saves your kid's life because hell, what's a 9-month-old kid gonna be able to fight off a disease? Highly doubt it.
Like if you are over the age to where like you can fully make decisions, so I don't know, maybe like in your teenage like years.
I'd even say 16 is when people should be able to make that choice.
Okay, let's say 16. Like if you're 16 or older, then go like have fun. Just like don't be near anybody else. That like if you think that you're actually like I guess contaminated, then like go to the doctor or something. But like if you don't want to get vaccinated, like how about it? Like it's your own funeral, in my opinion. But like
It,
when it's up to your like when it's up to your toddler child, that
yeah, exactly.
honestly, I think that should be a form of child abuse because that's that like you're putting your own child's life in danger.
Well, I'm not sure because there's a lot of countries I know that they don't even let your kid go to school if you have like no vaccines. Because I know, like for example, like in high schools when you work in like automotive shops and shit like that, you can actually get in big trouble if you don't have your tetanus because you're working with like rusty nails and all that stuff. And if something like that like goes in your hand or something, then that leaves the school responsible. And then you get lockjaw because you didn't get a goddamn vaccine because yeah. So
Yeah, I mean it's just crazy. Like I just don't understand like why you'd want to do that.
most of the time I would presume that it's almost not even an option anymore unless you go to an actual hospital where they don't do that kind of stuff. That reminds me of the meme. Sorry, we don't do that here.
But anyways, like to me it just like getting a vaccination seems worth it because like they're like free to little money and it's not even like it's going to be painful.
Exactly. It's literally
It's just a
it's like
little like the
3 seconds and it's done.
exactly they stick a needle in you, they inject the stuff and then they take it out. You can barely feel it. Like if you think that's bad, then I feel sorry for the person that's like a lot worse things in life.
Yep, exactly.
All right, well, somewhat, on the subject. Well, not really on the subject of vaccinations, but as you guys may know, or probably not, but Peach here is from Canada, and last October they recently legalized weed. Which my thoughts is, I think weed should be legalized worldwide.
I find that if we're getting onto this different subject, is I find the age also of consumption should also vary because it seems of now that everything's just kind of all across the board,
Yeah,
and I don't really think that's should necessarily be the case since it's something like that. There's all different things, right? So since the drinking age here is 18, 19, and over there is 21, it's kind of a hard thing to say how there's been studies, and if you're pro marijuana or you're pro or you're against, it doesn't matter. There's studies saying that if you're under 25, it affects mental, some development, some, on some sort like that. But the only issue I can see if we say, Kate, you have to be 25 to do this across the board, doesn't matter. You have to be 25, doesn't matter. The only problem I can see with that is people could possibly get very agitated how, you know what, I'm 19, I'm old enough to drink, but I can't do the other. So that's probably would be one of the only issues I could see with if people wanted to like if I don't know, like if there was enough studies and that kind of stuff. I just don't, in personal opinion, I don't believe that that would work.
yeah, and like I understand what you're going on. Actually, I think I was reading an article the other day where it was talking about like studies in teenagers' brain. Like
Yeah.
I think it's scientists can now tell if you've smoked weed by like at least like you can even smoke at least one time or twice and they can still detect it.
Yeah.
Which honestly, like kind of relating to that, uh, like me myself, I don't really see any like physical like downside to marijuana.
I think it's kind of like everything, right? It's everything in quantity is bad for you. It doesn't matter what it is. Anything can become harmful if misused. And I'm saying that where that might be a bit different with like a hard drug, like as of cocaine or something like that. But in my opinion, I find if it comes from the ground and it's not, how would you say, it's not cut with anything and it's a natural how it was meant to be, kind of like on the mushrooms kind of thing, where if it's natural, that's how it was meant to be. I don't find that there should be any problem in quantity though, because like anything, if you abuse it, it's not gonna work to its intended purpose. That's kind of like how people who smoke cigarettes, how if they continue using and they keep their nicotine levels up, it just keeps building upon itself because the body is like that to poison. In general, nicotine is poison. People don't think it is, but nicotine is poison. So then what happens is your body starts to be immune to that poison. So then that means that people have to use more and more and more. So that in general, since it was not necessarily misused because cigarettes are meant to be smoked, but it was misused in the, I guess, the dosage or quantity as it should be. So since it's a overindulgement people do, that's what becomes dangerous onto almost anything.
Yeah, and I completely agree to you. Like on the subject of like high quantity and back to what I was saying, like the I've only seen like a couple downfalls with marijuana. I saw like there's weed sickness, which like you have to get really stoned though to get that. Like that's you have to,
Exactly.
but onto that onto the that article I was reading. It was talking about like the scientists can tell if you smoked weed by even like smoking one. Because I guess it adds like gray matter to your brain, especially with teenagers, like undeveloping brain, like still developing.
Yeah.
Which I mean, apparently that like slows down reaction time.
Yeah.
And I mean, other than that, I don't see really any issue from it because like honestly, like anything can get abused at this point. But I feel like if it was put on this earth, it was put on this earth for a reason.
In my personal opinion, I would much rather have my son addicted to marijuana necessarily than addicted to alcohol. And that goes back to the age old um, drinkers versus smokers about this is better, this doesn't do this doesn't do this. But if we want to get technical, I guess you could say, if you are a smoker, it ruins your lungs. And it doesn't matter if it's medicinal use or whatever, it doesn't matter what it is, it's a carcinogenic when you heat it up. I believe that's the correct name for it. And since you heat it up, and that's what causes cancer. I know there's been things and people saying no, marijuana cures cancer, blah blah blah, but it doesn't matter what it is. If it's smoked, it is not healthy for you. It might, the herb itself may be healthy, but that's why when people say medicinal cannabis, typically it's used in a spray or it's used in a form of edible, so that it can give its intended effect, but it's not ruining your lungs at the same time. And that's kind of like where with alcohol, there's not necessarily any real benefit for getting drunk composed to getting high. And if you're using it for the right reason, maybe because like they used to back in the day, they used to prescribe alcohol, kind of like how now they used to they prescribe marijuana. It's it's really whatever. It doesn't matter. I think, in all honesty, it doesn't matter who does what, which. It's either, you know what, I'm for marijuana, so I'm going to say everything that's good for it and practically leave out the bad, or the vice versa. I'm against marijuana. I'm going to leave everything good out of it. I'm going to get the bad, right? So I don't think at this point there's any neutral ground. I don't think there's anyone who's, yeah, I could take it or leave it. You know, it does this, that's good for you, but it does this, that's bad. There you go. As I don't think, um, I think that's the biggest problem as of now, since, for example, in Canada, cannabis is legal, right? So I think people who are older, and that goes back to also generation gaps too. It's like, you know what? Well, people who were born when it was illegal, so say in, I don't know, this the 50s, and like your grandparents or your great grandparents either. Of course, they're gonna have a negative view on it because it was always like
Yeah, that's what
illegal, right?
they were like raised on.
Exactly. It's they were raised on you don't do that. That's bad for you. Booze was available, but that's was also back then when teenagers didn't. No, they smoked maybe not marijuana. They smoked cigarettes.
Secret, yeah.
Some of them, and some of them drank. Now
Now it's
teenagers
like
shoot up with heroin now, right? So it's like it's all generational gaps. And I find, in all honesty, the new generation that's coming in, once the old is out, I believe that cannabis is going to be more, I don't know, I guess you would say accepted.
yeah. So yeah, like going back to that subject of like the kind of like marijuana versus alcohol, like they both have their ups and downs. Like I've heard people be like, "Oh yeah, well I mean like it is perfectly fine to go drinking," and like part of me like I'm not gonna go say like no like you can't go drink, but like I just don't see a point of you like going out 24/7, getting drunk out of your mind because like all right So I've heard all the time that like drink a glass of red wine a day, it's good for you. Like at
Yeah,
the same time, there's been like studies that even showed that you don't even need wine anymore. Like there's grape juice that can do that.
exactly.
And so like yeah, they both have their ups and downs. Personally, I think marijuana is a lot more healthier. But like I know there is a lot of benefits to certain alcohols. Like I'm pretty sure if you mix up like whiskey with some maybe like some honey, like it's really good for like soothing sore throats.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing too, which seems kind of odd, but like I like that goes back to, right? Everything in quantity. If its intended dosage is, I don't know, say one glass, you have one glass. You don't have your six or seven glasses, right? So it's like that also goes back to an old thing I was saying that my grandfather would talk to me about, and that would be something how, and that this is kind of going off topic a little bit, how there's a difference between recreational and an addiction. You can it doesn't matter. You can no matter how you put it, marijuana is legal for recreational use depending on where you live. Booze, depending on where you live, is legal for recreational use. Now, it's recreational for people who do it at home or they do it in a how would you say an environment where it's allowed. But when people bring it into the workplace, that's when it becomes unprofessional, and that's I believe that's why cannabis, for example, and anything other that's legal that's for recreational use has a bad rap, right? Is it's because people who are high typically do dumb things, kind of like people who are drunk do dumb things too. So that's kind of saying how we're kind of putting all the cards in one hand. How saying how well just because you drink you must be a drunk driver. Well, it's not necessarily right, but I just find there's the boogeyman of marijuana that kind of needs to be released, saying, you know what, it's not all that big of a deal, but it's not all that um, bad, and it's not all that scary how people bring it
Yeah.
off to be. Is I just think people who are pro marijuana give it a bit of a bad rap because they will like kids will go to school high or they'll smoke at lunch hours or breaks, or people who go to work and that's what they do. They smoke during the break or they smoke during lunch or something like that. And I think that is the reason why everything has a bad rap. Because now I think we're kind of over people bringing booze on the job. I mean, like you still see it, but it's not nearly as big, right? So I find if you're pro whatever, use it responsibly. Like I believe that's why people get typically upset when people are always complaining about, well, why don't they legalize it? Why don't they blah 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 blah? Is I just find if you're pro, you need to learn your facts or cons too. If you're for or against, you need to know your facts before you start blurbing out and talking. I'm not saying that I'm an expert on all this anyways. But I'm just saying I think before people who are uneducated on it in general, doesn't matter your stance, if you're for or against, they need to do their research just like anything before you can start going off saying, yep, this. I think that that's the biggest boogeyman. It's your um, non-educated and that kind of on that kind of thing.
Yeah, and one thing I was just actually looking up while you were talking was like like the statistics of that stuff, like it is honestly insane to that point. I think I was looking at it in America alone, you have like you have 20 like up to 20 million people smoking marijuana, and I'm pretty sure I think it said 75% of that population is underage.
Exactly.
Yeah. But like all right, and this is another kind of controversy or kind of, but like is alcohol really considered a drug? Like personally, I think so. That's I mean that's kind of what I was grew up on. Like I'm not saying there's anything bad with alcohol, but I mean
I think I think anything that changes the state of which you are, how doesn't matter if you go from sober to intoxicated, and intoxicated I'm meaning on anything. If it changes the way your mood is, it changes the way you act, I think it's a drug. That's it doesn't matter how it's consumed because they make marijuana into a drink, which I wasn't aware of, but they make it into a drink. So is me saying, well, it's a marijuana drink, it's not smoking, so it's not marijuana. Not necessarily, right? So
yeah. And like going back to this drug thing, like honestly, this is really sad to see this kind of stuff because like the abuse of drug like honestly like marijuana is one thing, but like half these other drugs it kind of upsets me. See? Like here in the United States alone, the percentage of people using heroin is 0.3, but if you think about that, that's still 300,000 people like out of like in a range of like millions, that's 300,000 people.
exactly.
That just and the thing that surprised me, like drugs such as cocaine are even higher. That's like 1.5 million people. Blows my mind.
Yeah. It's kind of sad how not saying that no one does anything productive anymore. So I'm just saying is if it's something that dangerous, I just believe that that should not be a thing anymore. Like, you know, it just kind of confuses me. It's like you know what happens if you do that, right? You know what it's made out of, but people still do it. So that's the only kind of thing I have a problem with. Is it's just, you know what, when I look at it, it's not me who's doing it. If it affects one of your loved ones, I understand it's very difficult to deal with, kind of thing. But once you realize that all they want to do is, you know what, they're so controlled by this, they don't want help. You can't really do anything at that point anymore, right? So
And like I know from a somewhat of a personal experience, I I like knew someone who is still to this day battling heroin addiction. Like no matter how long they can put him in a rehab facility, like a almost like a mental house almost, but like for
yeah,
patients. No matter how long they can leave him in there, they can leave him in there for months, like years. He's not gonna get any better. Like he might be good for the first month or two that he leaves that place, but like sometime later on, he's gonna go and find whoever he was originally buying from, and honestly, that's sad to see that like your family, your loved ones in general, just like you have to watch them decline like that over like drug abuse.
exactly. Is it's just I don't know. It all comes down to I think people have a bit too much time on their hands nowadays. People can't stay busy anymore, and that's when people start doing irrational things.
Yeah. Also, I think one reason that drug usage wasn't so much of a like thing to worry about a while ago is I feel like people have gone softer over the years. Like literally, I'm pretty sure I read something about in colleges, like some of the students were so stressed out that they had to take breaks from their final semesters. Like
Yeah,
that's just ridiculous.
I that's really soft. Kind of like how unrelated to what we were just speaking about, how when the president got elected and people had to take breaks off and they had to, oh no, they have to do all this. You know what? Grow up. Like, not everyone's gonna see eye to eye. So, like, it's kind of hard to explain, but I just find it kind of silly how really you have to take time off school because something didn't go your way. Like,
Honestly, yeah. Back to the topic of drugs, and this might be kind of our final topic, but one thing that like I was thinking about is honestly like I think that plant-based drugs or like natural drugs, I don't see an issue with them. Like marijuana obviously comes from the marijuana leaf. Like I'm pretty sure like okay, I'm not saying cocaine is good for you, but they're like like again quantity. I have heard that there is like medical cocaine.
yes.
Cocaine comes from I think the coca flower. But the thing that just like stuff like crack or just like chemically made drugs like kind of upset me. I was reading something about a guy somewhere in Canada. I think it was either Ontario or British Columbia. I think it was in Vancouver, British Columbia. Thinking about it, it was on Snapchat. I remember a couple days ago. It was talking about this guy. He's a millionaire, and he sits there and just makes these drugs, and he tests them on himself. But like
Yeah.
it is a miracle that this guy is not in jail because he has sold some of these drugs. Like, I'm pretty sure I remember one of his drugs is banned in the United Kingdom for killing over 50 people. That's just ridiculous.
Well, it's like I do have to agree on that aspect. If it comes from the ground, like I believe I was talking about earlier, if it comes from the ground and it's a natural substance, I find, if it's not genetically modified, which I know they do with marijuana, and there's also a fine line too between cutting it and using like a pesticide or something, because some people consider a pesticide a a um a drug, and that is genetically modifying, which genetically modifying I don't it's not, it's modifying the genes. It's in the name, genetically modified, not spraying something on it to make it like grow faster or something like that. So,
Yeah, I pretty much agree with about everything you said. And yeah, that was I like I think that just like if you're under 18, honestly, I've made some of these things that I'm about to say. But like honestly, like I can understand in a way like certain things, but like don't do stuff I've known some people that are like even younger than me. I'm about to be 16 that have done stuff like and like cough syrup,
yeah,
that stuff. Not even when you're 18. Like I can like there's a fine line between that, and I honestly it's sad that people can't see.
exactly. So, guys, I believe that's about all the time we'll have for this. This is more of a trial one run to see if you guys would like it, and we'll have to keep working on different video ideas or anything. But we said we'd like to start off the channel with a podcast. So we would like to see how you guys like this, and if there's any topics you'd like us to discuss, that'd be great. We'll probably come up with ones, and I'm sure drugs. This will be the first of very many topics of just of drugs in general that we'll talk about. So yeah, if you guys like this, I would really appreciate if you would like and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any more of this. So other than that, that's all from me. Carlos.
Yeah, just like liking the video and subscribing, just it's like the like even if it's not a lot of people, it shows that like some people are really enjoying these videos and they're supporting us behind this, and it's really
Yeah,
appreciated.
and even if it's just one of you who watches these videos, just one person, and you know what? I would have no problem if I can make one of you guys feel like there's some joy in watching these. So be it. So yeah, we'll try to be uploading podcasts fairly regularly, though these will probably turn into a series most likely. So yeah, um hope you guys have had fun watching this. Any ideas, like we said, just put them in the comments. And other than that, yeah, make sure to like and subscribe. And thank you guys very much. See you guys in the next podcast.
Yeah.